Welcome to the CompCalc training and support video series for Windows 10 users. This is the second of the three-part training video series, Advanced Tips and Techniques. Additional training videos include basic features and functions and rating with the CompCalc. The developer of the CompCalc, author of the work Comp Index, and instructor during this presentation is Mr. Richard Montalbo. Let's join Mr. Montalbo for the second of the three-part training lecture series, Advanced Tips and Techniques.
Welcome to the CompCalc Plus 2017 support and training videos for the Windows 10 user. My name is Richard Montalbo, and for the next 8 to 10 minutes, I will be going through advanced tips and techniques to give the end user kind of a behind-the-scenes understanding of how the CompCalc was developed, what the algorithms are intended to accomplish, how they were written, and so that you understand what the CompCalc, by way of information or output, is providing to you and how it reached that calculation. I'll be using the new Surface Note by Microsoft, and of course it has a touch screen, so I'll be using both my pointer, my mouse, as well as tapping on the screen. I just tapped on the icon, CompCalc Plus. I'm going to double tap on that on the screen, and up comes the CompCalc Plus. Now the first thing that I want you to be aware of is in the PD rating manual, and that's the PD rating module. And that is the first module that when you come into the CompCalc generally, if that was the last one you utilized, that's where you're going to come in, by the way. That's the way that it works. It comes into the last one that you used. Okay, so the PD rating module, the one thing that I want you to be aware of on the PD rating module is that I built an array both for general part of body and detailed part of body, and I made it relational, meaning I indexed it, so that if the user selects, for example, ears, nose, throat, that his detailed part of body is limited to the ears, nose, throat. Now, when you look in your rating manual, this is not the way that it's put together, and it can be somewhat confusing. But if you, so what I did was I just indexed it. For example, if we flip over to spine, now all we have are the spine ratings. I also, and this is part of the PD rating support and training video, I also put in here a search engine. And so I just want the lumbar. And you can see by typing in the first letters of lumbar, it gives me just the lumbar options. Okay, the second thing that I did, and this is also in the PD rating, is I made the occupational industries relational to the occupation. So, for example, if you select any industry, you are going to have an occupational list of everything within the occupations, an alphabetized list of all occupations throughout the state of California. If, on the other hand, you go to aircraft, now you just have those occupations within that industry, aircraft manufacturing. Now, realize if it's not in the schedule, it's not going to be in the CompCalc, so you're limited to that. The other item that I want that is part of my advanced tips and techniques, and I show this in each one of the three modules, so that if you tap on occupational group here, we're going to go back. This is occupational industry. It says click to flip to occupational group. You click it, and now you have all the groups. And here again, we have a search engine. So what should you take away from the PD rating manual module? That the general part of body and detailed part of body are indexed and they're relational. That the occupational industries and occupations are indexed and relational, making it much more intuitive and much easier to use than the old PD rating manual, doing it by hand manually. Okay, let's go to the PD rating. Now, one of the things that we did in the PD rating module, you should be aware of three things in the PD rating module. First of all, I give you a lot of information here at the bottom. You can scroll through it. This is what I say are the top 20 greatest hits right here. This is all the information that you should have at your fingertips. Most of us want it memorized. I probably have it memorized, but it's nice to have it at your fingertips. That comes right out. Most of that comes right out of my book, The Work Comp Index. Second, be aware of this, that the 15% up or down pursuant to Labor Code Section 4658D is dependent on the year selected. And that asterisk is going to tell you that if you select that, you're going to have 15% up or down or flat on your PD indemnity module. Okay? The third thing that I want you to be aware of in the permanent disability indemnity has to do with 100% awards. If you go to 100% award, this turns it into a 100% award with a COLA PV calculator. And I demonstrated this on basic features and functions, but it bears going through it again. If you have a 100% award and you select the gender, female in my hypothetical, and the date of injury, 2008, and age at first payment, let's say the applicant is 60 years of age, and we're going to use a COLA modifier, a COLA calculator of 3.5, and a PV discount rate of 1.5. Now, this is some behind-the-scenes understanding of how I developed and wrote the algorithm. The COLA calculation is a modifier that takes place to modify the rate once a year. And I could have modified it and divided it by 12 and did it on a monthly basis, but I don't think that's correct. You would have had a different number than what I gave you. What I did was I took 3.5%, applied it to the payment, and used those payments for a full year. Now, I did not do that with the present value calculator. That modifier, what I did was I took 1.5%, that's an annual percentage, I divided it by 12, and I applied it based on a 52-week calculation. And I think that that is consistent with the intent of the Labor Code. So realize this, that if both numbers are identical, that the PV calculator is going to catch up with and pass the COLA calculation. Look at these. The future value of this is 1.165. The present value COLA is 1.162. That's because I'm doing the present value calculator on a monthly or a weekly basis, the COLA calculator on an annual basis. And I think that's correct. But be aware of that. That's why it is. And I've had a couple of questions on that from people that really understand math. Well, what did you do with the algorithm here to have it behave that way? And I think it's accurate in the way in which I did it. Okay. The other thing that I want you to be aware of, so we've gone through the PD rating. I'm going to clean this up real quick. Okay, so we have a clean desktop. If you look at PD rating schedule, that's what this is, but we also have a combined value equation. And I go over this in my PD rating module, but I want to make sure that everybody understands how the combined value equation works. Now, we have our first percentage, and let's say our first percentage is 16%, okay? Now, you get all of the first, or strike that, you get all of the highest with the combined value equation. Let's say our second rating string, though, is, and we want to add a second string, a second rating, and let's say our second one is 32. Not 55, 32. Okay, now if you take 32 and 16, you get 48. But with the combined value, you get 43. Why is that? Because you get all of the largest and you get 1 minus all of the largest times the next number. Here, I'll just do the simple math for you. It's about 30% minus 1, which is 70%. You only get 70% of the 16. It's 32 plus 70% of the 16. 7, that's 7, and 7 times 6 is 42. So that's 11. 11 and 32. Well, my rough math says it should be 44, but it's actually 43 after you round everything. Okay, so that's how the combined value works. You get all of the largest plus the percentage minus 1 of the largest times the next rating string. Then you add those two together and you get all of the largest plus the percentage of the second minus 1 minus the combination of the two times the third number, and so on and so forth. But that's how we develop the rating string for the combined value equation estimator. Now, what's neat about the combined value equation in the CompCalc is that you can modify it by putting in the average weekly wage that might be less than the max or more than the min. Now, look at, if you go ahead and put 300 in, it changes your PD rate to 200. 43%, which is the combined value of 32 and 16, ends up producing $44,400. So you can do a lot of hypotheticals here to find out what would happen, what if this, what if that, on the combined value equation. Okay, next, let's go to the temporary disability. There's a point I want to make on the TD calculator here that's important. Be aware that temporary disability, the period of TD, is from the point in time where the applicant has had an industrial injury and has not reached maximum medical improvement and is precluded from the usual and customary occupation, or stated alternatively, it's really, well, here's the way that I lecture when I describe TD calculation. You have two. You have eligibility. That's the first analysis. The second analysis in the TD is calculation. Eligibility, a person is eligible where they've had an industrial injury until such time as their MMI, maximum medical improvement, has been reached. They're permanent stationary, they've plateaued. During that period, they are eligible for temporary disability. Then the second part is calculating it. What is the period? Well, per the labor code, you're entitled to TD, and this is the point I want to make. This is how the CompCalc works. You're entitled to the first date of eligibility, but you exclude the date that you become medically permanent and stationary. And that's how we calculate with the date calculator. We include the first date, but exclude the last date on the temporary disability date calculator. So be aware of that. Okay. Additionally, on the life pension. On the life pension, I want you to be aware of the same issue that I made you aware on the 100% permanent disability, that the PV calculator is based on a weekly rate, based on a monthly, based on the annual rate of 1.5. And in this hypothetical, we have an annual rate of 1.5. I would divide that by 12, multiply that by, or divide that by 4 to get a weekly amount, and I would apply that on a weekly basis throughout the year. But the COLA calculation is applied once a year. It gives you a new indemnity rate, and you pay that rate through the entire year, applying the COLA calculation for the following year. So be aware that if both are equal, because the PV is more of a discount rate, it's more of a compound rate than the COLA. They're both compound rates because one's an annual compound rate, one's a weekly compound rate. A weekly compound rate is going to have a greater impact over time than an annual compound rate. And I'm using the COLA calculation as an annual compound rate, and I'm using the PV calculator as a weekly compound rate. So be aware of that. I've had some questions about why it behaves the way that it is, but that's the algorithm that I've put. Now, the other thing that I want you to be aware of has to do with support and training. If you want to visit my website, all you have to do is click on our web address. It says our web page, or you can contact me. That'll pop up an email. But what's also important is that you register your CompCalc through the contact feature, so that we know who's bought it and where you are, and so that we can make sure that you get updates. Now, the way that I'm drafting or writing the CompCalc is you'll be entitled to updates during the calendar year. If there's ever any update that I come up with, it might be changing labels, or it might be an additional feature that somebody asked for that I don't think it's a major feature, and I'm going to go ahead and allow you to have that for free of charge. It'll be available. All you have to do is go log on to the Microsoft Store and download the update. Annually, you'll have to purchase a new version of the CompCalc. So every year will come out, for example, this is the CompCalc Plus 2017. In January 1st, we'll be releasing the CompCalc Plus 2018. It'll have the new indemnity figures, and we're also going to have on the rating module a combined value regional selector. So that if you have 3 strings on the arm and 2 on the back, you don't do the combined value on 5 rating strings. You do 3 on the arm, 2 on the back, and then you do a combined value of those 2 numbers. That's the proper way to do it. So that'll be an additional feature. Okay, those are some of the advanced tips and techniques that I wanted to go over. Just be aware that when it comes to print, I want to show you one more thing. Let's go back to the PD rating. We're going to go into when you go into your print function, realize that the way that we wrote the CompCalc is that it hands off the print file to the operating system. So if you don't have your printer set up in your Windows 10 environment, the CompCalc won't have access to it. That's one of the questions that has already arisen. Second, so just don't think that the CompCalc automatically knows where your printer is. It's got to be set up in Windows 10. Second, your email. You have to set up your email account in your, and some of you may be laughing, but some people don't realize this, so bear with me. You have to set up your email account in your Windows 10 environment before you are allowed to use it or able to use it in the CompCalc. And what's neat about this is I showed this, we automatically format for you your email. So you don't even have to type everything in. You don't have to copy anything over. It exports your rating string into an email address and sends it out. So anyway, be aware of that. Okay, those are some of the advanced tips and techniques beyond the basic features and functions of the CompCalc. Hopefully that has given you some insight into how the CompCalc works and how it behaves in the calculations. Okay, thanks so much.
That concludes our presentation on advanced tips and techniques. The CompCalc is also available for the iPhone, iPad and Mac computers at the App Store, and for Android phones and tablets at Google Play, and of course at the Microsoft Store for Windows 10 users. The CompCalc is an estimator, not a calculator. The user of the CompCalc is instructed to verify all data with either a competent workers' compensation attorney and/or the DEU. It is not the intent of the Law Office of Richard Montalbo to provide legal advice, representation, nor create an attorney-client relationship with the user of the CompCalc.